hidden secrets in the morning dew. Nature's larder waits so kind. Well-being song for heart and mind. Breathe it in, calm and free. Earth and sky in harmony. Let the story softly flow from the herb where wonders grow.
Hey there, herbal heroes. My name is Tony. Welcome to the Humble Herb podcast, where we dig deep into the world of natural wonders. Ever wondered who actually creates, makes and sells those amazing health products in your local health food stores? We're chatting with the passionate people behind your favourite natural products and those who promote them to understand more about the variety on offer. From skin-loving serums to superpowered supplements and other well-being elements for your body and mind that you may or may not have heard about. Get ready for insider secrets, earthly wisdom, and maybe even a few giggles. Hit subscribe and let's grow a healthier, happier you together. As always, welcome to the Humble Herb podcast. It's all very exciting for our millions of listeners, obviously. So today, Fiona's joining me. Fiona's, well, I'm going to say, and you'll have to give us a bit more of this as we go along, really, Fiona. But I'm going to say one of the UK's top nutritional therapists and retreat leaders.
Yeah. That's very kind and an overestimate.
Well, I think we just run with it, Fiona. I think we run with it. Who's going to tell us otherwise? And it was really born out of obviously having you come along and be on today's podcast, Fiona, was born out of a meeting we had at one of the Wellbeing fairs that we recently attended. And I thought it'd be really interesting for myself and obviously for people sort of tuning in to find out more about what a nutritional therapist is, the retreats, and then the one-to-one services you offer, all that stuff, and maybe try and sneak from you a few little hints and tips that we can all utilize in our day-to-day world. How's that sounding so far?
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Yeah, thank you very much for having me. One of the UK's leading nutritionists is very, very, very generous of you, but thank you. That's very kind, and it's nice to be here and great to meet you at the fair too.
Oh, bless you. Well, let's start. So the information that I've got is that you had a career in advertising before, and then in 2016, I think that's right, and correct me if I've got that wrong, but in 2016, there was a pivotal moment. Something happened that made you decide to get into sort of the nutritional side of things, retreat. So explain to me a bit about how this came about, what it was that made you transform into this area, look into it, and what sits behind what you're doing now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I yes, had a career in media and advertising for 20 years, which I loved for a really long time. I had a good time, lots of kind of like work hard, play hard kind of culture, and living my best life, working for Capital FM, and you know, had great friendships, loads of holidays and things like that. Also looking after lots of clients and really busy Christmas. Was that moment really where I think I was on about Christmas party number 9, and it was about the 2nd of December. It was, you know, I just was burning the candle at both ends, and I just didn't feel very well. And I had cold after cold. I couldn't get rid of it, and I just didn't think something was right. So I went to the doctors and got some blood tests done. I had glandular fever. So my doctor said, you'll probably feel like this for 6 months, and you know, it will just go away. And I just thought, I can't feel like this for 6 months. It was just awful. Had my sort of life to get on with. And so I just started to do some reading and discovered nutrition and, you know, my immune system and the benefits of vitamin C. It was all just like a really big light bulb moment. I just thought, wow, how didn't I know about this sooner? And just then really wanting to share that with other people. I thought, well, you can't have this knowledge yourself and then not share it with others. So I started to look at whether I would change careers and what that would look like, and then different study routes. And it led me to doing a degree. Well, I'll talk about this a little bit more later as well, but I just thought I'll study this degree and I'll learn this information for myself first and foremost, and then if I can share it with others as a kind of halo effect, then that would be just a benefit. And I like good food, and so it just felt like, nothing to lose. And so I jumped straight in and then studied for 5 years part time, and got the qualification as a nutritional therapist.
Okay, so you've looked into this. Was the information readily available? I mean, should everyone know about this? Is it there for everyone, or do you have to dig a bit to find out some of this stuff?
Yeah, you definitely have to dig a bit. There's lots of information that's, readily available for people. And I think, back then, 2016 doesn't really sound very long ago, but it almost is, isn't it? Um, I was reading books. I was reading Patrick Holford's books. He read one which is called The Optimum Bible of Nutrition, and that's one that gets a lot of people to into nutrition and studying nutrition because it's amazing, and he's got loads of different versions of that now. So the one I read would have been quite out of date now, but yeah, there's information available on the internet now. None of it's necessarily regulated, so it's quite difficult to really fact check things and make sure that they've been through studies, rigorous studies that have been peer reviewed. And so you do have to know how to do the research. It is there, you can dig, but there's also really good books if people do want to just get a broad knowledge of nutrition, then you can do that.
So, what was in your mind when you sort of made these discoveries? You're working through. You're obviously making some, and I'm saying obviously, but are you making some lifestyle changes? I'm guessing you are at this stage. So
Yeah.
from there, what did you decide? Do you think I just need to spread the word, or did you think I'm going to offer up my services so people can discover from me, or was it I'm going to go straight into retreats? I'm just going to get some people together and do something. I'm just interested as to what your next step was, really.
Yeah. Oh, lovely question. Yeah, that's a good one. So when I was working in media and advertising, the specialism that I had was in recruitment marketing. So I was talking to large employers and large advertising agencies about how they were attracting people into their business. How do you retain top talent and employees? And how do you create a culture where they can do their best work? And so I loved that because I'm interested in the psychology of people and culture, and then that led me to kind of benefits and well-being, and so my work became I became more interested in health and well-being for employees than I was kind of selling advertising to clients, if you like. So I'd go to kind of health and well-being shows. There's a great one up in Birmingham, and just talk about what was making great company culture. And so that was the first step, was actually a career change from working in sales to employee well-being. So I did that first. My experience in the broadcast company that I was working for was around events. So I was already delivering events for clients, and managing sort of big events. And so I used that sort of bridge that gap between what I was doing before to employee well-being. So, selling, advertising, if you like. What I then started to do is kind of sell employee well-being. So it's just a different type of message. It's just about engaging people in a certain type of behavior. So that was the switch for me, was whilst I was still studying for my degree, I moved into employee well-being, and then slowly offered nutritional therapy to the employees that I was working with. So I was practicing as a newly qualified practitioner, and it just became it's too much to kind of work full time and then have another part-time job on top of it. You need to really practice what you preach, and so I didn't take on too many clients, but I did kind of still dip my toe, if you like, and so I ran retreats as an option to kind of still do my own work and get lots from it as well, kind of seeing that difference in people between when they arrive to when they leave. So I did it very slowly. There was an intention with the business. I did have a kind of 3 year plan of what I would like to do, because that was part of the degree. You have to think about what your business is going to look like, but it happened quite organically as well. The events, I was doing them for employees. That was nice, but I wanted to do them for myself, and so I did them in France. Um, And again, working full time and having a big corporate wellbeing role, I had to pull back on some things, and so decided last year to take the leap and just do it full time for myself in Suffolk, and really look at seasonality and local food producers and just promote all of these great people and businesses and place and landscapes that we have in this area. So that's where I am. It's been a journey. It's happened quite naturally, I say, with some intention as well. But yeah, here I am.
Well,
It's a
I
long
mean,
one.
that's well. I'll come back to Suffolk in a minute because it really is a beautiful and understated county, actually, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm a great believer in kind of the market really feeds back to you as to whether you're doing something well or not. If there's a place for it and there's a need for it and you're doing a good job and you kind of believe in what you're doing, then you'll succeed, or you'll certainly get more people approaching you with interest. If you're not, it just doesn't work. So clearly you got to a stage where you're able to make this jump through the successes you'd had. So let's look at someone coming on one of the early retreats for you. Obviously, there was a holistic approach that
Mhm.
you're doing, and you're doing a range of things. I'd be really interested to know, first of all, kind of what a rounded look of that retreat might be, but also what someone, or if there's some specific examples you can give us of what people got at the back end, the sort of
Mhm.
feedback they gave you.
Yeah. I think I'm a very practical person, and the way that I have studied everything, it has to be evidence based. It's there's a place for everything, isn't there? Of course, but when I was kind of looking at retreats, and when I've looked at retreats for myself previously, the type of retreat that would appeal to me would be something that very practical, something that you can really feel a benefit and then also do in your own life. So it had to have those kind of pillars. And there isn't a silver bullet when it comes to health. It was a nutrition centered retreat as a nutritionist, but nutrition impacts our sleep. It impacts how able we are to recover from exercise or exercise. There's a real benefit for nutrition and linking it to mindfulness and mental health. And people aren't always wanting to engage with mental health as a topic. It can be especially hard if you are struggling. But food is a great way to connect us to well-being because we're eating every day, and just being mindful of those choices and connecting to how our body feels in terms of hunger even is a great kind of way to keep connected. So the retreat's really centered on all of those pillars of well-being, so sleep, movement, mindfulness, and then it finished with kind of creativity, and all of it is kind of with a thread of joy. It's well-being is a fun thing. It's there to be celebrated. Eating well, looking after ourselves is a really positive thing to do. So it was really far away from anything trendy or anything fad related, just very kind of sensible, practical, easy ways to improve your health. And so that's what I think the success of it was.
But Fiona, if I can just jump in there, you say the success of it, but what feedback did the people on the retreats give you? I mean, how did they measure success? How did they
Yeah,
know if something had worked?
yeah. Um, I think the impact is there to see when people are leaving. It's kind of evident in the difference that people feel in terms of how rested they feel, how well they're feeling, their energy, for example. But also, I think, I guess when we advertise for a retreat, you're not saying we're not advertising it as a transformational retreat. That's something that happens off the back of it. And it's usually because when people book retreats, they are in need of that time. They're obviously they're looking to feel rested. They're looking to feel nourished, and so it serves those purposes: improving sleep, um, supporting gentle movement, eating really well to kind of nourish our gut, and the menus are well balanced for energy as well. So eating for energy and making sure the macronutrients are right throughout the day was something that was just taken care of. So that was, very kind of obvious to see, a very tangible result. But then people come on a retreat to feel better. They're also coming on retreats to celebrate really big moments in their life. I've had a lot of people coming to celebrate 60th birthdays. There seems to be a moment for women, especially where they get to that point and they've done so much, successful careers or navigated big life events and transitions, and they are ready to just give themselves something, a break, and take care of themselves. You want to turn up to a 4-day event and have every little detail just taken care of for you, and that's what I'm facilitating really. So as well as that, people can be coming on a retreat because they've been through a bereavement, and it's a moment to kind of be kind to themselves, or just gain that kind of moments of joy again. In particular, I had one lady come on the retreat, which she was very unwell. She didn't know it at the time, but was exhausted and something wasn't quite right. We didn't know what was wrong. But just a few weeks after the retreat, she found out that she had a really big brain tumor, had
Wow.
brain surgery, and is here, it's almost 3 years later now, making a really incredible recovery from that. And that group is, in particular, is so well connected, has been a great support for each other. Still, lots of WhatsApp messages, and there's important calendar dates, or always celebrated in the group. But that lady in particular said that had she not been on that retreat and given her body the rest that it needed, she doesn't know what the outcome would have been from that surgery. So for her, it was, right time, right space, right place, whatever you want to call it. People take from retreats what they need, and it can be very personal. And we just hope that you can facilitate whatever it is that they need in particular, that's the thing that they'll take from it. But otherwise, some people can just turn up and they haven't read the itinerary, they don't know what it is that they've signed themselves up for, but they're just there for a good time. So it can be anything to anyone, really.
So you really get an eclectic mix of people on the retreats for a range of reasons.
Always, yeah.
Do you ever get people that turn up that are or want to come and see you because they're in a particularly bad place? I mean, you mentioned this lady that was ill, but she didn't know it at the time. Do people come to you almost at the end of the tether where they're going, God, I just feel awful, and what do I need to do to make myself feel better? Do you ever get those sort of people?
Yeah, absolutely. And in the one-to-one practice as well. Yeah. Usually with one-to-one clients, they have tried everything, traditional methods, or the GP, or they've been on medication for a long time, and something's just not working. It's not they, or maybe they are well, and they still just want to kind of know what they could do to improve.
Fiona, you work with individuals on personalised nutrition plans. What are some of the common underlying nutritional balances you see in clients, and what are some of the initial steps people can take to address these generally?
Yeah, there are definitely common themes. I think weight loss tends to be a goal for people. It can be much harder as you enter a perimenopause or menopause stage. So that's quite a common group of people that I would work with. I also work with lots of people with digestion issues, and so it might be that we need to take a look at gut health before we can move on to a weight loss goal. So if the digestive tract isn't properly absorbing nutrients and food, or there's some issues with the immune system or stress, then we have to kind of put things into balance before we can get to the long-term goal. So um, yes, there are some common themes. And the things that you can do really, it's always a very much an individual approach, but I can't stress it enough. Working stress management is really vital. Rest, how we perceive stress is really important, and having, I just think balance is really the key for most people.
Stress is a really difficult one to measure even these days, I think, isn't it? What's stressful to someone might not be stressful to someone else. Um, just as a sideline, why do you think there's so much stress about these days? What do people bring to you when they talk about stress?
People are just so busy, aren't they? We're connected for hours and hours on end. We don't have access to, natural daylight or movement as much as we once would have. Our working hours are really long. There's lots of home commitments. I just think people have got far too much on their plate. I think social media has got a role to play in it, kind of the perceptions of expectations people put on themselves for their life. It's just, maybe unrealistic. And I think even how quickly we are responding to messages, emails, the inbox, and the things, just us living in an instant world of people just expecting information straight away causes overwhelm. Um, and it's how you perceive those things, that you can't trick your nervous system. Even if you're sitting down at the weekend relaxing, if you feel stressed out because there's loads of things to do in the house, that's going to have a physiological effect on the body. So it's your perception as well. Just because you look like you're resting, you might not feel it, and that's where the real work has to be done.
I think that's so fascinating. I often think of the previous generation that perhaps sat through a war or that sort of thing and weren't sure if they'd wake up in the morning and have the roof blown off and all these stories you hear. And I always think to myself, now that's stress. I mean, I can understand why you'd be stressed there. In
Mm,
this modern day world, why would anyone have reason to feel stressed? But you're absolutely right. It's 24/7, isn't it? And
yeah.
I talk to pensioners that are seem stressed out. I talk to teenagers that are stressed out, and obviously people in the middle there.
Mm.
And you're right, the connectivity has a lot to answer for. Um, yeah, it's a really tough one. So do you see people across the spectrum that come to you, sort of saying that they're stressed or overwhelmed?
I think it's almost a given. I don't think I've ever come across somebody that doesn't have an element of stress that they need to kind of manage in their day, and then that has an impact on sleep. Once you've got kind of a poor sleeping pattern, that has an impact on your day, and then concentration and things just become a bit more difficult. So that holistic, element of well-being is always factored in. Yeah, for sure.
So I can see why it's not really as simple as saying, well, just take less sugar in your tea and you'll be fine, or add a chunk of sugar to your tea so you get a bit more energy. It's not that simple. It's the whole thing, isn't it, that comes into it.
Yeah, very much so. And how one person metabolizes their food versus another will greatly vary depending on, their stress, their gender, the time of day that they're eating, their genetics, and um, life stage. All sorts of things will influence kind of how we react to our food. So yeah, very much individual approach.
And so you dig into that when you do a one-to-one session with someone. That's really what you dig into, isn't it? The whole element of what they are, where they are.
Yeah.
And is almost nutrition not the last element, but is it the icing on the cake, or is it a fundamental part of it? Where does it fit, Fiona?
It's a fundamental part, isn't it? But if you're viewing it as the cherry on the cake, then you're probably going to be someone that comes to me and it's a last resort because you've not realised that, and that happened with me. It sometimes takes that to realise, this is the thing that I really need, and that's the thing that I have not been doing so well. So it's absolutely fundamental, and because we need it to survive, and we are what we eat. um Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Um that was said in 400 BC. That is just blows my mind, because it's so true. And that's the thing about these retreats that I run, and the advice that I'm giving. Sometimes you always feel like a fraud because it's just such simple things that it really is, and people know it. There's no People are smart, people are well educated, they know what to do, but knowing what to do for yourself when you're unable to see it because you're exhausted or stressed out, that's the difference that I would make for someone.
I love that quote too. I think that's just fantastic, isn't it? And I take your point about people knowing what to do, but also we just talked about being overwhelmed and having a lot of input coming into our world all the time. Um, it's finding that time to step back and have that space to evaluate your situation and go back to some of the simple things, like you say. But let's say then I'm listening on this, I'm feeling a little bit stressed. I want to boost my overall well-being through nutrition. Just some simple steps. That's what I'm here for. I'm listening in. Fiona's got some answers for me here, accepting that everyone's different and all the rest of it. But what are perhaps two or three fundamental but maybe overlooked principles that could have a positive impact on my energy levels, for example, my health and energy levels? What could I do? Little changes, Fiona.
Yeah, I think firstly taking a look at what type of stress that is for you will impact what it is that you need to do. For example, if you're someone that's getting up in the morning, having 3 cups of coffee, going into the office or whatever, and not having any breakfast until say 11 or 12 o'clock, and then you're starving and you're just having a sandwich, you need to look at how your day is kind of weighted. So for me, it's always what are the things that are filling your cup? Are they stressors? Is it that, coffee, caffeine is a stressor? It causes that kind of reaction. Um, are you giving yourself the right kind of timings of meals? So always start with breakfast, making sure that you've got a good balance of breakfast in terms of protein, good quality carbohydrates from whole grains, and a good quality source of fat. Fats are really important for your mental cognition. Your brain is predominantly uses the energy source from fat and carbohydrates. So if you're not having enough of those, it can it can just be difficult to kind of concentrate and think. We are 60% water as well. So if we're not well hydrated, things will start to kind of go off. Um, and so that's where I would start with kind of a good breakfast, making sure that you're well hydrated, and having a look at the type of stress that you've got. If it's work, for example, say it is emails or it's stressful meetings, um, making sure that you've got things to balance that type of stress that you have. There's a really good book on rest. It's called The Art of Rest, and it's looking at the different types of things that you can do to balance different types of stress that there can be. So stress can be also, exercising too much. That still is a positive thing to do for our body, but it can still be a stress. So understanding what it is that's causing the stress to balance it. But yeah, I'd look at the things that are um, perhaps stimulants, coffee, caffeine in particular, cigarettes and smoking, alcohol, those types of things as well can just really cause us to be depleted. Certain nutrients, like the B vitamins in particular, are really important for kind of energy. Adaptogens, CBD is obviously really important for the nervous system and so many other things. Um, Adaptogens, mushrooms can be really good in supporting the nervous system. So there's specific nutrients that you can focus on. For energy, they tend to come from animal sources, give you complete proteins, complete amino acids that the body can't make 9 of them. So those, but also, yeah, your fats and your carbohydrates as a good kind of balance of energy for macronutrients across the day.
Right, so Fiona, let's come back to you on a few of those things because I found that was really interesting. The breakfasts. So since I can remember, I've been totally brainwashed by Mr. Kellogg's, Mr. Ready Breck, whatever. And that's breakfast. It's always been about. I mean, there's a row. You go into the supermarket, there's a row of cereals, aren't there, on offer? Everything from some of and I'm not obviously saying anything particularly bad about any of these things, but it's just the way we've been. I'd almost use the word indoctrinated into
Mm,
what we should expect breakfast to be. But
mm.
breakfast doesn't have to be cereals, does it? I mean, you've mentioned some of the nutrients that we need. So, what constitutes a rounded breakfast in your mind?
Um, yeah, so the really good, perfect breakfast, really, a boiled egg or poached egg and a nice slice of whole grain toast with some, you've got fats and protein from the egg and a source of quality carbohydrate. That's great. Greek yogurt is another really good whole food that you can have. Great probiotics in there, proteins, fats, vitamin A is in there as well. If you're looking for vegan versions of those, tofu is a really good option for breakfast. Beans are an excellent choice as well. You would see those on a kind of typical full English, wouldn't you? But they are a brilliant option for breakfast. Things like, then include it with mushrooms and spinach and just veggies, just thinking about vegetables and greens for your breakfast as well, because if there's a target of, say, 5 a day or 8 a day or 30 a week, whichever newspaper you're reading, um, it's hard to do if you don't include some of those plants for breakfast. And so, an easy way to think about that is a good source of protein. That could be a bean, it could be tofu, it could be tempeh, or an animal source. And then half of your plate, try and aim for that to be kind of veggies, like spinach or peppers, mushrooms, or beans would count as well. So um, there's so many things, but people, when they're doing their shopping, tend to have the same sort of shopping list, the same repertoire of recipes that they go to.
True. Yeah, that's true.
And we are creatures of habit, aren't we? So that's why I love to think about food in terms of seasonality, because each season just gives you an opportunity to just think, what else can I include in my diet this season? What do I need at the moment? Coming out of winter in spring, we're looking for much more hydrating foods, more greens, more herbs are becoming more abundant right now, which is really powerful. So having some of those for breakfast, and have it maybe switching a smoothie. If you have a smoothie from fruit, you might want to have something a bit more green in your smoothie. So making little switches often. You can't do the same thing forever. There's no such thing as perfection anyway. But even if you worked out what the perfect way to eat was for a day and did it for the rest of your life, you'd be missing out on a whole spectrum of things. So variety and balance are kind of key.
Just listening to you there, I think what's apparent, certainly I can only speak for my lifestyle, um, is that food a lot of the time is just something that needs to be done, in the respect that you're absolutely right. We all have our 10, 15 recipes that we go to every week. They get thrown in the shopping basket or something. And there's a time slot and there's not much thought given to it. I mean, if we're being exotic, we might throw in some ginger or garlic or something, maybe some coriander, but that's about as far as it goes. But what you're saying is really, really, it's important. It sounds ridiculous, but it is. We should take time over this, shouldn't we? And actually think about what the next week's input's going to be into our bodies to give us give us the best chance. And it needs some time and energy given to it. Is that fair?
It's, yeah, very fair, absolutely fair. The problem is that if you ignore it for too long, it will bite you in the bottom, and you'll be forced to pay attention to it, and that's what happens. Chronic stress, chronic sleep disorders, long-term digestive problems can lead to things like pain and inflammation and disease. Essentially, these are metabolic processes, hormonal processes in the body. If they start to go off, they will cause disease, and that we know that. So yeah, it absolutely has. You have to put some thought into it, or work with someone that can do that thinking for you. That's another reason to work with a nutritionist. If you're just unsure or don't have time to think about it, people can just work with someone that will just tell them.
And I want to come back to the fat thing as well, but um, almost if you make some of these changes, is it fair to say they could be preventative in sort of illnesses that might come along? Obviously, that's something we can't really measure and we'll never know because hopefully they don't come along. But is that how important it is really to mix things up?
Yeah, there's loads of, yes, there's definitely way more research coming out now, and some really good books on preventable lifestyle diseases, Alzheimer's and cancer and Parkinson's, um, these and certain types of cancers anyway can be preventable through our diet and lifestyle, and we are able to tell that now. There are studies. It's just that you can't say this broccoli is going to cure this disease. It's not something that can be said because of all the reasons that we've mentioned so far. It's um Yeah, absolutely. It's about living, we're all living longer years, aren't we? There's not a lot of fun to be had if you're not living it in healthy years. If you're living an extra 10 years, but the quality of your life is poor because you're in chronic pain, that's not where we want to be. So it's about having longer, healthier years that we're encouraging here. So longevity, really, really key.
So, and I wanted to go back to the fat element that you mentioned, because again, we've all heard, I've heard, fat's not good for you, stay away from fat, it can be bad. But then I've also heard the dreaded cholesterol word. You know, if you've got cholesterol, that's bad for you. But then I've also heard cholesterol, we need cholesterol, we need fats in the body. So without going down a whomping rabbit hole, I mean, just a flavour of, you know, this, what sort of level, or what's good or what's not, what we should be looking at, really,
Yeah.
if you can,
Yeah.
Fiona.
That is a whomping rabbit hole, isn't it? I like that phrase. Um, yeah, what we have been taught about fat and cholesterol is completely wrong, and there's still outdated views on public healthcare websites, and nice guidelines are kind of be just changing at the moment. And the original kind of study around the fat being bad for us, that the people that conducted that study have since apologized about that information being wrong. But
No way.
yeah, and apologized a long time ago. But these things kind of stick, don't they? And especially with the older generation, my parents' generation, what they believe about food and kind of, margarine and, semi-skimmed milk, or, whatever. There might be reasons why you need to stick to those types of foods. That is an individual thing. But generally, it's around, I keep saying it's kind of annoying, isn't it? I'm sure, but the balance of your overall day and your overall plate matters. And there's ketogenic diets that work for people, and can help with things like epilepsy, but it's just very restrictive and very difficult to do. And I just don't think that people should be um, having to do anything so restrictive. It's not necessarily sustainable. Um, but fat is really good. We really need it to absorb certain nutrients. Our brain really, really needs it. It's a vital kind of source of fuel. It's a macro. Um, or extra virgin olive oil, really anti-inflammatory. That's great to be including, but it needs to be uh, not more than 10% of the overall calories that you're taking in a day. So you don't need too much of it, but you don't need to exclude it from your diet, for example. The quality of fat, the quality of the carbohydrate are more important. So when you think about fat, it might be the method of cooking. So eggs got a really bad reputation for a period of time because people were frying them in a sunflower oil,
Right.
but a poached egg or a boiled egg is fine. So the method, deep fat frying food, not super good for us. But a saute with some greens, no problem. So the heat temperature important.
Okay. So that makes it. So again, we're back to, this is why ideally we come and talk to someone like yourself to get a good overall picture of what we need to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to come back to that in just a second. This is a personal question, and I'm kind of hoping it goes in a particular direction. But Mr. Haribo out there and Mr. Cadbury, is that off the table, or is there room for something in our diet when it comes to chocolate? Come on, Fiona, work with me here.
You've given yourself away there ever so slightly. I'm a sucker for a little squashy, the little drumstick sweets. Of course, there's space for it, but it's about what you're doing for most of the time. You can't ever no, no, and crisps, and whatever your thing is, like a little bit of what you love does you the world of good too. So no, it's just about what you're doing for most of the day. And I think that's why I say always, starting with a really good breakfast kind of sets the tone for the day, I think. I think if you were to go the other way and you've got a busy day and you rush out the house and have your coffee and then you grab a croissant, it's a slippery slope then for the rest of the day. It sort of sends your blood glucose on a bit of a roller coaster, and then you're just kind of, you have the energy slump, so you chasing the energy and you would go for something a bit more sweeter, or a simple carbohydrate to give you that instant energy, and then that impacts your sleep, and then you're in this cycle in the kind of overnight and the next day, and that's what tends to happen. That's when metabolic disease can start to happen.
Yeah, so there's definitely a short-term gain, but long-term pain is definitely the case there, I'm afraid, isn't it? That's just ruined about 5 out of my 7 days, Fiona. But
Yeah,
so okay, let's come back to beautiful Suffolk then, and I think Suffolk's fabulous. So you're based in Suffolk.
yeah,
You offer both in-person and virtual consultations.
yeah.
And so, for any listeners that are intrigued by your approach, benefits that might bring, the nutritional therapy, all those elements, how can they connect with you for a consultation or for a seasonal wellbeing program?
Yeah. My website, they can, just come, drop me a line. My website is itstheberries.co.uk. On Instagram as well as seasonal nutritionist. You can find me at either of those places. I'm on LinkedIn as Fiona Berry. If you wanted to connect with me in a corporate way, I am very happy to just have a 15-minute conversation with people on the telephone if you wanted to ask any more questions about your own particular circumstance and see if I can help, then I'm very happy to answer those questions. My interest is to make sure that I can impact, and so if I can't, I am happy to refer elsewhere or advise. You might just be kind of curious to know what an event is like, so just having a look at the events that I'm running, coming along to one and just kind of dipping your toe. I just hosted an afternoon retreat, which was lovely. Just 5 hours of just a little bit of what people needed has been the feedback, and just a really lovely time. Again, I've got a summer retreat in June, which is 4 nights, which is more similar to the experiences in France. It kind of looks at overall well-being and provides those experiences, like there's a painting session, there's a coaching session, qigong, a nutrition session, a talk from an organic farmer. So it's kind of real experiencing these ways of well-being, which is just going to be really fun. So if you want to just try out what it feels like, you can do that, or just a personal program if you've got something very specific to address.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Fiona. And what about the last question I have? Is there anything coming over the horizon? I mean, you said about the quote, which is hundreds of years old in the making, but is there anything coming over the horizon that we should be aware of from a superfood point of view, something we really should incorporate every day, like that sort of special nugget of gold as such? Is there anything hoven into view that that you know of or that's coming our way?
Won't find it in any nuggets, that's for sure. I Yeah, I think this is why I love nutrition, is that it's never going to stand still. And almost what we know now, you'll know from your amazing products that you sell to people. We're almost at very early stages of understanding the power of nutrition and the power of specific ingredients. And it's not super new, but kind of what we know about it is still we're still learning. Have you heard of epigenetics?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. So the study of epigenetics is around um, how to positively or negatively influence our genome through lifestyle and diet specifically. So when we're born, we're given the DNA that we have from our parents, and so some of that will be a genetic disposition towards or not towards a certain type of disease. And so listeners may be familiar with the 23andMe. You can go and test your DNA and see what's in there. That's interesting, isn't it? Because you'd be curious to think, well, my family, I've got a history of breast cancer. Maybe I should just go and get that checked. And yes, you should, but you can do that with your doctor. Um, or a predisposition towards Alzheimer's, for example. Now, that might mean that somebody kind of ignores all of the things they've discovered because it said, I don't have a genetic predisposition to that type of thing. So you go and live your life without any kind of care about this disease that might occur. But actually, what we know from epigenetics is that you can switch your genes on and off through diet and lifestyle, which is it kind of counters about 95% of those lifestyle diseases that we know. So that hand that you have been dealt through being born and the environment that you've grown up in, no matter where you are in your life or life stage or disease stage, you can always positively influence the outcome further, either by slowing down the progression of something, removing it even, or preventing it from occurring in the first place, which I think is just the best thing. And that's emerging, still emerging. And what we know about the gut microbiome is we're learning all the time, because it's so difficult to locate the microbes that are in our gut, because as soon as you take them out of that environment, you can't study them because they die. So there's millions of bacteria that have a purpose, that are just in your gut or on your skin, or all over your body, and are working hard to protect you, or then maybe not being so helpful. And what we know about those individual microbes is just kind of emerging as well. So I think that, paired with the tests that people are becoming more familiar with, the Zoe Predict study is going to be really interesting. All of that data that people are giving to Tim Spector is incredible. I think personalised nutrition is going to be much more of a thing. I hope that in that there's a real fairness, because I think that people can afford to pay for that type of testing. There's a real disparity, and I think that should be made available for everyone. So my biggest hope for the future is that you see kind of nutrition integrated into the NHS, and that this is available for people, so that they don't need a doctor. That would be my dream.
I mean, that's a lovely dream, Fiona. Thank you so much for coming on and explaining all of this to people. And we've just scratched the surface, really, haven't we? I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing. We've taken up people's time listening to this now, but there's so much more to discover. I
Yeah.
really love the fact that sometimes when people are in a position where they're concerned, worried, or facing challenges and don't know which way to turn, they generally will go to the doctors first. That's the go-to, isn't it? And
Hmm.
I think with people like yourselves and opportunities out there where there are alternatives, and actually you can have a say in what happens internally in your body, and therefore what happens externally in your body as well. That's such a powerful thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
That it's just nice to make this information available to people, really. So at least they've got an option, haven't they?
Yeah, I think understanding that you have agency over your health is already in itself has a benefit to you, for a feeling of empowerment, a feeling of hopelessness. If you're experiencing pain every day, is awful. It's terrible. I fully empathize with people that are in pain every day and not knowing what they can do about it. But there's lots with the right kind of support, and finding that information through places like the Humble Herb podcast. So no, thank you very much for having me too.
No, thanks, Fiona. Really, really appreciate your time, and we'll definitely see you again soon, won't we?
Yeah, pleasure. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
brilliant.
Thank you.
And that's the tea for today's episode. We hope you're leaving with a head full of knowledge and a heart full of, well, whatever makes your heart full. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a dose of the humble herb, and tell your friends, because sharing is caring, especially when it comes to good vibes and great information. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep it herbalicious.
The humble herb, it speaks to you. Hidden secrets in the morning dew. Nature's larder waits so kind. Well-being song for heart and mind. Breathe it in, calm and free. Earth and sky in harmony. Let the story